Welcome back to Problematic Women. Guys, it's Halloween weekend, and there is nothing scarier than the possibility of a far-left candidate becoming your governor or your mayor this next Tuesday. So we're going to break down the big races: Virginia, New Jersey, New York, California with their Prop 50, what you can expect, and what you should know before going and voting on Tuesday. Also, we have Jessica Furst Johnson with us today, premier conservative legal mind, a partner and co-chair of the political law practice at Lex Politica, and a mom. We're so excited to have you here with us today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
We're going to break down all of that today on Problematic Women. Welcome back to Problematic Women. I'm Elise McHugh.
I'm Virginia Allen.
And I'm Isabel Brown.
And Jessica, we're so glad to have you with
Thanks,
us today.
ladies. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
This is going to be awesome to talk about your background. And we're going to, in a little bit here, we're going to get into kind of these worlds, both as far as all of the legal work that you do, the politics, how those worlds have collided for you.
Yeah.
And then also getting your insight on life as a mom, as a working mom. And
The best part. Can't
all
wait.
that fun stuff. But before we get there, I feel like we need to give a quick rundown on what our president has been up to. He's been pretty busy. So Trump spent the vast majority of the week in Asia. He went to Malaysia, Japan, and South Korea. Of course, the big flashing in lights messaging from this trip, biggest thing to follow was Trump's meeting with the Chinese president, Xi Jinping. That happened on Thursday, kind of essentially in the middle of the night for us. So Trump posted on Truth Social, I think around 4 a.m. Thursday morning, giving the rundown of, hey, this is what happened. But immediately after that meeting, Trump got on Air Force One, headed back to the United States, and he was asked on Air Force One, hey, how did the meeting go? Let's go ahead and roll that clip of Trump giving his assessment on how he thinks the meeting with Xi Jinping went.
But overall, I guess on the scale of from 0 to 10, with 10 being the best, I would say the meeting was a 12. Okay, I think it was a 12. I think very importantly, just the whole relationship is very, very important. And I think it was really good.
Especially coming on the heels of the successful trip. We're in Malaysia. You signed a peace deal for Cambodia and Thailand. Critical mineral deals with all our allies.
So many successful meetings.
Right?
And so many meetings great for our country with literally hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars have come into our country over the last 4 days, represented by this meeting. But trillions of dollars. Where Toyota is going to build plants, $10 billion worth of plants. And, I could go over so many different companies coming in. They're pouring money into the United States.
So a longer version of that clip, Trump comments on how bumpy it is.
Yeah, you can tell the turbulence.
There's turbulence in the air. But so the biggest takeaways from Trump's meeting with Xi, soybeans, Elise was just commenting, like, it's funny, we have a whole talking point on soybeans.
Soybean diplomacy.
It's been a big deal. So U.S. farmers produce lots and lots. Apparently, we produce a lot of soybeans in the United States. And this is a major thing for our agricultural community. And China, because of all of the trade tensions and tariffs and everything, has essentially stopped buying soybeans from the U.S. Now, Xi Jinping says that China is going to again start buying soybeans. Another big takeaway was rare earth minerals. So China, they produce 70% of rare earth minerals come out of China, and they process 90% of rare earth minerals. These are things that go in our smartphones, in TVs. Don't ask me to explain exactly what they are, but they're really important to technology. And so with the threat of China essentially cutting off the U.S. to rare earth minerals, that's a major deal. So Trump was like, nope, we reached an agreement. We're going to keep getting the rare earths. Then on the fentanyl side, I talked to China expert who's on Fox all the time, Gordon Chang, about this. And he was like, fentanyl is the number one issue that I'm going to be watching with this meeting because the precursor chemicals that the cartels use in South and Central America to make fentanyl, those flow out of China. And China has said in the past, hey, we're going to crack down, we're going to do better, and really little has happened.
Yeah.
And so really seeing that strong movement of China actually putting their money where their mouth is and taking real control and ownership over this is critical. Then, of course, the larger overarching tariffs as a whole, tariffs are getting knocked down 10%, going from 47% on Chinese imports, going from 57% down to 47%. So those are like the major takeaways. The thing now is these are verbal deals. These are not in writing. China's not to be trusted. So will China actually follow through? Remains to be seen.
I think that's an interesting segue into the larger Asia trip at large. Part of this rare elements package in particular, which I have a weird nerdy interest in because my mom is actually a mining lawyer currently working in rare elements right now. So very specific niche subject that literally no one ever talks about.
But here we are talking about it.
But, I called her yesterday because they made an announcement on this trip that Japan and the United States signed a rare element agreement to help reduce global dependency on China. That sounds great on paper. Japan literally does not have rare elements in their soil. There's nowhere to go mine for them anywhere in Japan. So that's a nice element of diplomacy, but I think there's going to be a really interesting conversation moving forward about the need to reduce Chinese dependency by ramping up American production for so many different industries. It can't just be diplomatic conversations that we have with our allies in other countries. That's important, and that's a very exciting thing that we're seeing as a resurgence of leadership globally under the Trump administration, but where Americans can produce products for Americans in mining and any other industry, I think is really remaining to be seen, and I'm hopeful to continue seeing more leadership there.
Absolutely, and especially hoping to see more leadership. I really do feel like for the first time, we have a president who, on the global stage, people take us seriously. Obviously, this is not a deal that was being cut when Biden was president, and it's because he has this very America first strength when he's presenting himself, and we're letting go of that we're kind of friends with China and they're our buddies and just not touching it. It's no, if you're not going to work with us and you're not going to help us out, we're just going to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
I think one thing that has been so interesting to follow over the course of this administration is, Trump's not getting the credit for the wins that we're seeing on the foreign policy stage. I mean, it's really interesting if you watch, some of the more left-leaning, media productions, which frankly, I think sometimes is more helpful to watch because you need to know what your opponents are saying, right? Yeah. They're not talking about some of these major wins he's had. And that's because the media doesn't know what to do with this America first diplomacy. We're no longer relying on these multilateral institutions and organizations where we've just kind of put a stamp on these organizations and said, that's our foreign policy. We've now got a president who, look at what, even the Kim Jong-un meeting, how interesting was that? He was one of the first presidents to negotiate face-to-face with an adversary. We expect more. We're doing so from a position of American strength and expecting America to benefit from these negotiations. How great is that? To have a president that's putting us first.
Absolutely.
It's huge. It's a really big deal. Well, and I think it puts Trump, following all these meetings, it puts Trump kind of in the driver's seat.
Absolutely.
Because now it's all right, we've negotiated face-to-face. I've kind of given China a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, and now if they don't do what they say they're going to do, sorry.
I told you.
I told you.
I warned you. I said it was going to happen. You knew that this was going to happen when the crown shifted from Biden to Trump, metaphorically, no kings. And you don't heed my warning.
Just say, nothing would make me happier than if they had an actual crown ready to go for Halloween this week for the president of the United States. I think heads would roll in the media. It would be amazing.
I wouldn't put it past Trump, honestly.
It would be great.
I think I can see that as a leading contender for favorite Halloween costume.
It'd be amazing.
Trump with a crown. I see that, but we'll get back
from
to that
both sides of the aisle.
Yeah,
totally.
Is it the crown from the Louvre, though?
Oh, that's a good point.
Great point.
Chronically online Halloween costume.
Well, I will say with an election around the corner, I feel like we might see some Halloween costumes for certain candidates who are in the spotlight, a little bit, some more than others. But we do have an election on Tuesday. So this is big. Not in every state across the country, but here, where I live in the state of Virginia, we have a gubernatorial race that is big. Of course, New Jersey also does. Up in New York, they are voting on the new mayor in New York City. And then California has Proposition 50, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second, but it's essentially gerrymandering. It's permission for a time to make a special exception, a special rule, and redraw the districts in the state so that they can get more Democrat congressional seats and kind of, in their own words, fight against Trump.
They need to stop being greedy. There's enough Democrats in California on their electoral
Apparently
map.
not for them. We need to be bluer.
There's not enough people that have fled the state kicking and screaming. Yeah, we got to kick all the rest of them out. Yeah.
But I feel like elections now, and I mean really in the past several years, but but like messaging has become, it's always been important, but just the rules have changed a lot in the past several years. And people are having to get way more creative in their use of social media and how they appeal to young people, all of these things. We saw Trump revolutionize this with starting to do podcasts. And now, you know, we have TikTokers and like all these people who are doing all these things. It's changed a lot. So I want to look at specifically these three races, Virginia and New Jersey gubernatorial, and then New York mayoral, and just kind of look at a little bit compare and contrast as far as what are we seeing strategy wise. So in the state of Virginia, we'll start there. Home state, great state. Yes. So we have Abigail Spanberger. She is the Democrat. She was a representative in Congress. And then we have Winsome Earl Sears. She's currently the lieutenant governor of the state of Virginia. And I want to go ahead and let's play a campaign ad first by Winsome Sears. And of course, over the course of any campaign, there's dozens of ads that come out. But I feel like both of these ads just give a good sense of the vibe and tone that these candidates have taken. So let's first play Sears and then we'll play Spanberger. We'll play these back to back.
They pick your worst day.
I'm speaking now.
They twist your words.
And I think that's good.
They say you're not polished. Seriously? I'm Winsome Earl Sears. I'm running for governor to educate, not indoctrinate, grow paychecks instead of hate, and keep Virginia moving the right direction. As your governor, I won't be a polished politician, but as a United States Marine, I'll always fight for Virginia.
I'm Abigail Spanberger. I grew up walking the halls of Tucker High School. After 9/11, I walked the halls of CIA as a case officer working counterterrorism. And then I walked the halls of Congress, where despite the dysfunction, I got things done and was named the most bipartisan member of Congress from Virginia. As governor, I'll work to lower costs and make sure our schools prepare all our kids for jobs of the future.
Spanberger for governor. Service. Country. Commonwealth.
Oh boy.
Okay, so let's get some. We have see lots of faces and reactions. Like let's get some gut reactions from these.
Okay, my first gut reaction is I have not been able to stop saying I am speaking, and I love it. Why did she include that in that ad? That's a great moment. Like I love that she said that. Yeah. And then my second thought, and you guys can break it down deeper, but most bipartisan member of Congress? Are you kidding me, Abigail Spanberger? She's more left than Biden on so many things. Yeah. That is crazy to... Who told her that? Did
Not to mention, is just straight up refusing to denounce Attorney General candidate Jay Jones,
So
literally threatening to kill children. Like how many... She was asked this on the debate stage, and sadly these clips will never get picked up by the media, ever, but went viral, at least for those of us paying attention on social media platforms like X, where she was asked point blank several very difficult questions, not the least of which is, are you okay running on the same ticket as someone who wants to kill the children of his political opponents, because that's the only way people will ever change their mind on policy? To which she just... No answer.
That was my reaction in watching that ad. It's like, wow, she's really great when she's scripted. Because, if you watch that debate, the thing that came across was that she just didn't know how to answer the first question, the question that came up countless times, and the question that anybody that's been following this even a tiny bit knew was going to be the main topic of discussion at that debate. And, the hypocrisy on the left is wild on this issue. If this were a Republican, who had called for this sort of violence against children, who wanted a mother to watch that child die in the mother's arms and thought that was the only way to make progress, can you imagine the outrage? But it's been complete silence. Literally, ask the question, can't even look at Lieutenant Governor Sears, looks straight ahead and can't even respond. When you can't denounce that, what is wrong?
Which was the same response that she had on the debate stage, actually, for some other difficult questions.
Absolutely.
Like, for example, would you be okay with your daughter having to stand in the locker room with a man undressing his clothes, biologically speaking? Is that okay with you? And her daughter's sitting in the audience, and she refuses to make eye contact. She refuses to answer the question. That is the most basic question that any parent, let alone politician, should ever be able to answer, especially as the mother of a daughter. Like, for the love of all that is good, just answer the question. Absolutely. But they refuse to acknowledge these very important day-to-day issues that people are living with. And let's not forget, Virginia has had multiple examples over the past few years of teenage girls being assaulted or raped in bathrooms and locker rooms in public public high schools, this is a very real issue for Virginia. So to pretend like it doesn't matter or it's cheap political talking points, I think is just so pathetic.
And keep in mind, it's not like she doesn't completely ignore these questions when they come up. MSNBC actually asked her response to everyone talking about Jay Jones, and she snapped, and she couldn't just ignore it because she was on a one-on-one interview in MSNBC, and she was like, can I just say, I'm running my own campaign, and I'm really annoyed that I've been doing this campaign for 2 years, and I have to answer for political violence for my running mate. Like, I'm really
From
annoyed
my
about that.
running mate as I'm running my own campaign. Like, just, it's insane to hear these people talk.
I know, and I've started to, actually, I have driven through Virginia. I still see the Spanberger Jones
They're everywhere.
signs up, but I did see one that had tape over Jones's name, and I'm like, oh, I know what's behind that though.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's a really important message to Virginians. You know, if we can even communicate to, rational Democrats, shall we say, so just don't vote, in that race, to be honest. But, that is enough. I mean, it is absurd. And frankly, as a Virginia resident, I'm a little scared of what that means for my community, for the Commonwealth. If we're willing to, as a collective whole, put somebody in our governor's seat who not only can she not answer questions, when, again, she should have been prepared for them, but she doesn't even know what the answers are to these very rational questions. But yes, for these real life problems that Virginia parents are dealing with, when you can't say that you don't want boys in girls' locker rooms, that's, as a parent, that's terrifying for our Commonwealth.
Well, I think my one complaint against the GOP, against Winsome Sears' campaign, is that everything that has just been said, they should have been writing on every wall, shouting from the rooftops. And it kind of felt like there was a little like, oh my gosh, look at this thing that Jay Jones said, that he wants to kill his political opponents. Isn't that terrible? And then everyone was like, okay,
let's move on. Yep.
And it's like, no, like you just were handed a gift as a campaign team on a silver platter. Like, run with that, because messaging is so critical. And I'm like, I just haven't quite seen the energy in the messaging and them really taking advantage of quite frankly some pretty low-hanging fruit.
Not even just low-hanging fruit, but like the most heinous example ever, probably, of somebody running for public office, especially to be in charge of the law enforcement of the state of Virginia. The temperature of the country, and this is still really hard to talk about, but the temperature of the country in the wake of Charlie being so publicly assassinated in front of all of us. I mean, you guys know Charlie was my closest mentor for upwards of a decade. We are living in a time where people are dressing up as Charlie Kirk being shot in the neck for Halloween this week. That is part of the exact same cultural conversation and the zeitgeist in our country right now as to what's fueling these Jay Jones comments. I don't understand why the Republican Party is failing to link the two, or they're maybe not seeing that this is part of a larger, the left is violent conversation in our country, and are willing to run on that, to use that in advertising, to bring it up in speeches, to talk about it with wall-to-wall coverage on all of your preferred television networks, etc. But there's not this impetus to talk about it. And I don't understand where that is.
And there's been many instances within her campaign. I can't even count on my fingers the amount of times that there's been a slip up where I've thought, hey, this is about to derail her campaign under any normal circumstance. But because it really hasn't been hit on too much with the messaging between, the Democrat protester at a Winsome Earl Sears speaking engagement where she had a really racist sign saying, hey, if trans people can't be in my bathrooms, then you, Winsome Earl Sears, a black woman, can't use my water fountain. Hello. That point blank period that should have ended her campaign right there. That would have been catastrophic for a Republican, but it wasn't. And then Jay Jones, even before the texts were leaked, he drove 116 miles per hour on I-64 and evaded jail. It took cops, by the way, 3 miles to catch up to him. That's how fast he was going. And he evaded jail by doing community service, which ended up being
for his campaign.
So he's being investigated right now, I think, for that. And then just
lovely how I've never even heard of this. Like, this is the whole point. No one's even educated the public on this.
No one's heard of this, and it's insane. And I'm like, why aren't we blasting this on every TV, every cable news network when you have your FEC allotted time to have these campaign ads? Like, I love the campaign ad where Winsome Earl Sears is just showing her being quiet, but then it's like, okay, why don't we hit on this aspect and this aspect? And I'm like, please, we just need to talk about this on Twitter.
Amen.
Well, it is. I think it's worth noting. Take polling with a grain of salt, but right now Abigail Spanberger is up in polling against Sears. In New Jersey, though, the two candidates are a lot closer. That's really neck and neck. So in New Jersey, for gubernatorial race, you have Democrat Representative Mickey Sherrill. She is a GOP. And then she's going up against a GOP Assemblyman, Jack Ciarelli, and the polling there, it's just so close. I don't know a lot about New Jersey politics, but I think it's fascinating that, they're just right there on the edge of New York, and yet, okay, this is essentially another arm of New York, and yet they're maybe for the first time since 2018 going to have a Republican governor. It's fascinating.
Jack got within 3 points of Phil Murphy in 2021.
Really?
And that was with that being a sleeper race. Gubernatorial races are so interesting because here, we only have 2 this year, whereas next year we have 36, right? So,
we can go a lot deeper.
Totally. It's almost like a special election in that sense, right? Because you've got such intense focus on just 2 races. But with really people kind of thinking, well, New Jersey is going to New Jersey, and not really paying attention, all of a sudden he gets within 3 points. So what I think is really interesting is, he learned a lot of lessons. As you always do when you lose, you learn more lessons from a loss than a win. So he learned a lot of lessons. He's back. No one is going to outwork that guy. And his energy around his campaign this entire time has been so inspiring and frenetic. And so, I'm really hopeful that his message has been clear. He presents such an incredible contrast to his opponent, especially with respect to energy, which is so important there. So I'm really hopeful that, New Jersey residents will get out and vote and see what we all see in Jack, which is that he would be truly an amazing leader of the state.
And I'm also very curious to see how the New York City mayoral race is influencing this New Jersey governor race almost because, they're so
Great
close
point.
to each other. The people are vastly different despite being like a few miles away from each other. So I'm really interested if I were to be on the ground in New Jersey, especially the more eastern side that's closer to New York, how the thoughts and ideas being presented there are affecting their voting patterns. Do they want to lean more into the commie Mamdaniism that is being presented there, or are they saying, hey, we need to vote for Jack Ciarelli because we don't want to eventually go down that path in New Jersey? So curious.
Really critical.
Should we talk about New York?
We have to talk about New York. It's New York City. Well, I think New York, it's fascinating because a mayoral race somewhere, you're like, excuse me, most people aren't very aware of who the mayor of their own city is. But everyone knows the mayor of New York. It's, you think about, I've said this on the show before, but tourists come to the United States. Where do they go first? They go to New York City. It is kind of the heartbeat of the nation. And it's also can be a little bit of a signal to where the political winds are headed. So we have three big candidates, as we've talked about before on the show, in the New York mayoral. Of course, Democrat Socialist, Mamdani. Then we have Sliwa, he's the Republican, and Andrew Cuomo running as an independent. He's a Democrat. So I was fascinated by their ads and even just their social media presence. So let's go ahead and we're going to start with Mamdani, and we'll watch one of his campaign ads, then we'll watch one from Sliwa, and then we'll watch one from Andrew Cuomo just to get a little bit of sense of what their vibe is.
Andrew, New Yorkers want a mayor who will make groceries and childcare affordable, not sell us out to their billionaire donors.
A mayor that'll make buses fast and free, not defund the MTA.
Andrew, you're scheming with Donald Trump.
We're voting you off the island
and back to the suburbs.
We're with Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani. He'll stand up to Trump, freeze the rent, and deliver universal childcare.
We're going to build a city where no one has to struggle to survive.
Paid by Zohran for NYC.
Didn't we already vote you out?
They tell us New York is safe, but women know better. Rapes are up 40%. Felony assaults are at an all-time high. Domestic violence is driving mothers and their children into shelters. Every day, women risk harassment and assault just going to school, to work, just living our lives. Curtis and I have always fought for women, and will keep defending them, because no one should have to choose between supporting their family and protecting their life.
I'm Andrew Cuomo, and I could pretend to do a lot of jobs. But I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. And And I do know how to make government work. I'll hire 5,000 new cops to partner with local community groups and keep our families safe. And we'll get the homeless off the streets and into the help they desperately need. There are a lot of jobs I can't do, but I'm ready to be your mayor on day one.
It's a train wreck. Where was this guy for the last however many years in New York? I can't.
So we have so Sliwa's video. He did a very human appeal. He had his wife on there. For Andrew Cuomo, he was using some AI mixing in, and then Mamdani went with cultural reference, of course, with survivor theme, and so I think I would term Sliwa as the classic old-fashioned campaign ad, Andrew Cuomo trying to get with the times. And then I do, Mamdani has just run a good campaign with the cultural references. I don't support a single thing the man says. He has run a good campaign.
Yes, he has.
You said this on the show last week, and I want to bring it back up because it was such a good quote. He's promising you a lot of candy. He's Halloween. He's promising you a lot of candy, but it's really scary what he's bringing. And it's just even with that video, the cultural reference of Survivor, you're like, oh, this is fun. This is hip. You see all the people in the ad. Looks like a lot of people in New York. But what did that ad really say about what he's going to do for you other than not be Cuomo?
Yeah.
And I think he's going to win on that message.
Yeah.
I do too. I think he's easily going to become our next mayor of New York City, which is a shocking thought, I think. But ultimately, what's interesting to me about Mamdani's campaign is that he, and a very few small number of other exceptions, seems to be one of the only major players on the left that gets it. That knows how to play the game now, that knows what media buttons to push, that knows how to connect with young, real people, not just with legacy politicians. There's a video of him going viral on TikTok right now where he's walking the streets and he's going cab to cab to cab, and all of these cab drivers are rolling down their windows and he's reaching in and shaking their hands and reminding them to vote. And they're saying, I already did, I voted for you. He has this man of the people sense that I don't think we've really seen since Trump in
Trump
2015.
It's the it factor.
And he gets it. He totally understands that elections, ultimately, as much as we can pretend they're all about big money and big donations and super PACs and the media, elections ultimately are about people, and he is a people person. Now, all of his policies, ironically, are going to destroy life for people in New York City, but that doesn't matter ultimately to win this first round at the ballot box. And I think it signals to me a really interesting seismic shift in the Democrat Party moving forward from 2025 beyond. I've said for years, when are these people just going to learn how to play the game? I mean, it's actually getting embarrassing how bad they are at losing. We certainly saw that last November, but we've been waiting for the sleeping secret Trojan horse here to come out from the Democrat Party and to wake up and realize the game that the right has been winning for the last decade or so. It scares me that Zohran Mamdani, yes, he was a state legislator, but who really pays attention to that? Was no one 6 months ago. We have no idea who he was. We have no history of his political behavior or certainly his job history because there is none. But if somebody like that can be produced in 6 months, imagine what they can do by the next presidential election.
This is similar to Jay Jones, right? You're running to be the prosecutor, to be, the Commonwealth's attorney, and you've been a politician. I mean, you've never been and so it's interesting. Yes, candidates matter. But how do we, in campaign ads, better communicate that experience also matters, and know-how and knowledge? I mean, you're talking about policies, which we all know sitting at this table, you can't accomplish without bankrupting the city, and really causing severe danger to people's lives. Why is that message what are we doing to not communicate that message, better? How can we have, young people communicate that experience still matters and be able to talk about their experience, without ceding ground over to gray hairs? It's such a tough.
Well,
That's an interesting question.
I feel like I'm such a pessimist on this because as a young person,
as Gen Z,
I do hear these conversations. I actually have many liberal friends. I hate that I'm saying all these cliches. I have many liberal friends. And I've talked with them actually. Who do you think is the leader of your party? And they
It's
said,
a great question.
They said we feel like we're just kind of floating heads in space. And then I asked them about Mamdani, and they're like, actually, we like him. I don't really know what he stands for other than the things that he's promising, which don't really seem plausible, but he just seems like something new. And as someone who ran for music director of my acapella group. They just want something new. Even if you have like the knowledge sometimes and you have the experience, sometimes they just want something new.
Well, they're going to get it, I think.
Yeah,
So they're going to have to.
It was without Mamdani, right? I think New York has a very short memory, but I think we all have a very short memory as a country with how bad things can get very, very quickly. We all got a shot in the arm, literally, of that the last few years under Biden nationally. But New York has been on the precipice of some really interesting change politically for a long time. Think about how many Republicans left New York in the last 5 years. The entire electorate has changed dramatically. So I'm not surprised that he's probably going to be our next mayor. But if anything, I'm looking forward to the gift of the next few years of the microcosm litmus test of what socialism is going to look like in America's most impactful city, because boy, are we going to find out quickly just how bad it is.
They'll have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
And we should be asking everyone on the left what they think about him. And if they endorse these policies and, whether they think that makes sense for their community. Yeah. That's a great question.
Side note, did you guys see what he said this past week about how his aunt was really afraid to ride the subway after 9/11, and then it was debunked. He didn't have an aunt that was in New York during 9/11.
It was Dad's cousin, I guess, who he said is still my aunt. I can give him the benefit of the doubt on that. That doesn't even bother me. It's the substance of what he was saying.
I'm not even sure if the aunt, cousin, family member is real.
I think she was in Africa. Wasn't that the conclusion?
Sure.
I don't know.
He's saying this.
Regardless whether she's real or not, the substance is insane, right?
Insane.
That people being afraid of being called a mean name on the subway, which of course is bad. Like, of course we should identify that. But that's the real victim status of 9/11.
Yep.
I know. You said New York has a short-term memory.
Yes, we do.
Very clearly shorter than 24 years.
Yeah. Well, who's most of the people supporting him? It's voters under 35. I was 3 during 9/11. I have a very fuzzy, very, very vague memory of my parents being in front of the TV all day. But my sister was an infant. My other sister wasn't born for a full year after 9/11. So the vast majority of the electorate that's supporting Mamdani probably wasn't even alive.
Yeah.
For 9/11. They have no connection to that.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Well, these are issues, Jessica, that you have spent years touching in various capacities. You spent 17 years as general counsel for 3 different national political party committees. You've lived in the weeds of this. What was your kind of journey into that space, into mixing law and politics? Because it is, it's both a large space, but it's also kind of unique.
Yeah, no, I've always been interested in politics. And then, also, and I think a lot of lawyers would tell you this, growing up, you're argumentative, or you prolong debates, or you refuse to go to bed, or whatever the issue is. And, somebody says, you should be a lawyer, you're going to be a good lawyer. And so I think, that was as true for me, but couldn't quite figure out how to meld the two. Had done campaigns right after college. And to be very honest, my first job, and I'm definitely showing that I was alive during 9/11, so pardon me, but, my first job, I was making $15,000 a year. And I think, especially as young women, we don't talk enough about finances and, being financially literate. And it sort of started to occur to me, that's tough. And so what does this look like? What other professions can I really invest in and work really hard in so that I maybe have a chance at providing more for my family? And so I thought, maybe I can go to law school. And this was back in 2005 when, the economy hadn't really tanked yet. And so you truly could go to law school because you didn't know what to do next. And I tell lawyers all the time, people who are interested in law school, that's not really a great reason to go to law school today, right? Because you don't know what to do next. But that's truly what I did. I thought I would lobby. Didn't at the time know you have to know people. It's kind of a prerequisite to being a good lobbyist. And came up here and had the benefit of truly like falling into some really interesting positions with women often who, did this really exciting practice that melded politics and law. And I was able to scratch that itch that I love with research and writing and reading and arguing, but still be kind of deep in the weeds of politics. I always say to my clients, my job is to help you win. And I get to, beat Democrats all day. That is truly my job. I want to be part of the team that wins, but I get to do so by being a real lawyer and reading the regulations and reading cases. I truly think I have the best job.
That's That's awesome.
That's so cool. Well, and I know you're super passionate about getting women elected
Yes.
and more women running, and yet we see like all the stats are it's way I've heard the numbers, but people throw out like a man only needs to be encouraged to run like 3 times, whereas a woman needs like 17. You probably know the numbers way better than I. Why do you think that is? That there's a little bit of hesitancy among females to be like, oh, I don't know that I want to enter that space.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, even though I'm not obviously an office holder, I still feel that same tension just as a working mom, right? And when I'm not home for dinner, I'm asked who's watching my children, and I can tell you when my husband's not home for dinner, nobody asks him who's watching our children. So I think for women, it's really hard to find a time to step away from the family to be real, and that's what's required when you're running for office. I mean, you can, I always say you can have it all, not all at the same time. Yeah. And so I think for women, there's this internal calculus, what does that look like? How can I make this work? Who's in my community and on my team that's really going to stand in my shoes and support my family? And I just, my husband is a tremendous father, and I know really excellent, wonderful men who do step up. Yeah. But I think that there's more, women have, we have this running, thing in our heads of the list and all the things that have to get done, that we lay awake thinking. I just don't think most men carry that burden. I think it's easier for them to just go and do, whereas we think we have to take care of so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. How did you strike that balance, especially when I know your kids are a little bit older now, but they're still kind of young?
Totally.
How have you found that balance?
Well, I always jump on the word balance because I think we've done a disservice to women when we say that you have to find a balance. Yeah. That's impossible. Yeah. I mean, what I always tell people is, it's a juggle. So you're juggling all these things, and then you see the thing that's about to explode on the floor in your face, and you grab that thing, right? And then you probably kind of drop something else in the process, and then you straighten up and grab that thing. And so I used, before children, I could tell you, you could say, hey, let's grab lunch next Wednesday. And I could be like, oh yeah, I know I have this thing in the morning and this afternoon. And now I have no clue what tomorrow looks like. No clue. I don't really know what's going on tonight. I don't know if I have to make dinner, but I will figure it out, and it's all going to be fine, and we're going to make it work. But it's not balanced. Yeah. And some days, my focus will be work. And then other days, I love to volunteer at the book fair. So I'm going to clear my schedule for that. It's important for my kids. It's important for me to see them in their element and be there and teach them a love of reading. That's critical. So it's not all about balance. Maybe it is across the lifespan, but not, day to day for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's a really healthy perspective. Because I've heard other women say that, you can have it all, just not at once. And I feel like that takes the pressure off.
It does. It should.
Because otherwise, it is just watching balls drop and break.
Mm-hmm. And we're all in this together, women, I always say, women would run the world if we were nicer to each other. I mean, it's true. I mean, finding, more support and, the women mom friends that are in my corner, I would put them against anybody's, circle of friends. They're just truly everything. And I think that if we can all support each other, pitch in to help each other really build community. I mean, I think some of the divisiveness in our country is because we've kind of fallen down on building these basic community building blocks, right? And I think that helps us all be stronger and better.
Yeah. Is there a piece of advice that you maybe wish you would have received as you were entering in to your career into a pretty high power, both law field and politics? You combine two very high power things. But is there something you wish that someone had told you, or maybe that someone did, that you're just really thankful for?
Yeah, I remember a conversation with one of my bosses, a partner I worked for. I remember everything about the moment, and my memory is really bad, so that's quite saying something. But she told me, she said, this is a really hard way to make a living. Mm-hmm. Especially, when you're a lawyer, if you're in corporate law, for example, oftentimes you have the same clients for 20 years. Mine win and lose elections every 2. Yeah. You're constantly changing clients. You're constantly hustling. I can't imagine doing anything else. This is my passion. I think we really are making a difference. I think it's important for our country. But I think the advice piece is that there's nothing that will stand in the way of hard work, right? I will work very hard. I will outwork everybody. I'm going to work really hard. I don't expect anything to be handed to me. Yeah. And if there's a moment where I can't, work the latest or be at that event and I miss out on something, that's okay. It's all going to be okay. I think that's also the other thing I wish somebody told me. It's all going to be okay. Yeah. I mean, it really is. I think especially in the city, we always feel like we have to be the best, and and speak the loudest and be everywhere at once. We don't really have to. You know, put your part. We all have the same amount of time. What is worthy of your time? And let's reprioritize our lives and just make sure we're focusing from the top down.
So practical. I love it. Well, one of the things that we have all been, maybe not all, but many of us have prioritized this weekend was Halloween. So Friday night, did you take your kids trick-or-treating?
Yes, we did, and we had a Halloween party earlier in the week. So they are, they're 10 and 8, so they're sort of interested in maybe spending more time with friends than their parents now. We're trying not to be offended, but yes, we're definitely big trick or treaters for sure.
I love it. Well, I mean, this is a constant conversation that people get very passionate about, and Isabel, I know we talked briefly that you have strong feelings about this, but like in the Christian community, even I think sometimes just for any faith background, people can have concerns about Halloween. And it's like, do I celebrate? Do I not? Totally. So I have opinions. I think Elise has opinions.
I do.
We all have opinions. Because you have this energy.
Yes,
I want to speak.
Okay,
so excited.
Let me say, this is my first Halloween season as a mom, so I'm very excited. I know I'm very excited to be sharing this with my daughter. But we've always taken Halloween very, very seriously in our family. Growing up, we always had the themed family costumes. We got like really into it. Trick or treating were some of our favorite experiences and memories as kids. So it's been interesting to me, having grown up in a very faith-driven household. As an adult, especially the last few years, I'm seeing so many content creators argue about this all the time. Is Halloween a satanic or demonic holiday? Is remotely celebrating it denouncing your Christian values? And I find this fascinating because historically speaking, just through the historical lens, Halloween is a Christian holiday. That's how this all got started. Now, do people manipulate different days of the calendar, and are there dark forces at work trying to make any day a satanic holiday? Yes. So I want to put a pin in that. But Halloween is part of a larger 3-day event in the church historically called called Hallowtide, rather. And a hallow is literally just somebody who has passed away already and is in the next phase of eternal life after this world. So when we celebrate Halloween, which used to be called All Hallows Eve, we're really just trying to remember the concept of our death, to remind ourselves that our life is temporary, that our lives have meaning. There's a historical saying in Latin that the church used to say all the time called memento mori, which literally means remember death. And it's supposed to keep you grounded in this, remember you are ashes, into ashes you shall return, or dust into dust you shall return, that we often say during Lent as we get ready for Easter. And I've never thought that that was morbid or weird or demonic. I actually think it's really powerful, and it gives Christians such a unique perspective on this life and the fact that it is temporary and that our ultimate destiny is not here during the very limited time that we have. That feels especially poignant this year, I think, watching everything that has happened with Charlie Kirk in the last few weeks. And young people are really wrestling with this. What is my calling? What's my vocation? What's my destiny? It has to be bigger than just this lifetime and the legacy that I leave behind, urging people to go to heaven. So when we celebrate Halloween, we also are celebrating the concept of a temporary life and the joyous occasion of our death, where hopefully we will spend eternal life with God. But we also get to celebrate stuff like All Saints Day, which is part of Hallowtide, and All Souls Day, where we pray for our family members and our loved ones who passed before us. And I think it's a really beautiful Christian celebration. So I'm seeing lots of good memes. I'll end it with this. I'm seeing lots of good memes over the past few days of like little kids dressed up as Spider-Man, and it's literally every other day of the year. It's great. It's fun. We love seeing little kids dressed up as Spider-Man. And then next to it is little kid dressed up as Spider-Man on October 31st, and it's like Satan, evil. Right. It's okay. And of course, you need to guard your family against any sort of spiritual warfare. We did an episode of my podcast airing on Halloween about continued spiritual warfare in our world with an exorcist priest that was really fascinating. And I'm glad that that's becoming a fascinating conversation for our culture again, because that is constantly waging around all around us, and we need to be guarded against it. But is going trick-or-treating with your child dressed as Dora the Explorer going to open your home to the darkness of Satan? Probably not. And everybody needs to calm down. That's my 2 cents.
Here's the thing. I think that, and I remember I grew up in purity culture, right? So, this was an analogy that was used there, which I think is really helpful here, which is when you're thinking about your faith walk, it's not how far can I get to the edge of the dartboard before I fall off. It's how close can I stay to Christ's love in the center, right? So for some people, if Halloween, for whatever reason, if that puts you in a dark place, if that brings sin in your life somehow and separates you from God, then avoid it.
Yes. Yeah.
Just like you should anything else that separates you from God, right? For me personally, it doesn't do that at all. It's not, to your point, it doesn't do that at all for me. So yeah, we're going to enjoy it. We're going to give out candy and go collect it. And my kids are going to probably make themselves sick on Snickers bars. That's what we're going to do. But this is personal to everybody. If something in your life is separating you from God, get rid of it.
Which is biblical. Paul talks about this in 1
Mm-hmm.
Corinthians. He's like, hey, if something to you, if you have a personal conviction, you shouldn't do something that is sin to you. So don't do it. But don't judge someone else because they do it, because they don't have the same convictions as you.
Right. Exactly. And it's great for community building. I mean, it's been some of my favorite memories growing up. It's the top 3 favorite holiday because I'd go with my neighbors who, sometimes we go to different middle schools or we're not in the same class, but we always dress up as kids, go together, parents could talk together. And we need that so desperately in America right now to have this community building. I do understand a lot of the concerns, and this is a big piece of dialogue on Twitter right now, the kind of demonic and scary Halloween decorations that some neighborhoods and neighbors put up. It's very disturbing because it's like, especially if you're in the suburbs, kids are going to come to your house. So why do you have a severed Donald Trump head on a stake? Or why are you dressing up like Charlie Kirk?
Yeah.
That is bad. Or even just as simply as some ghoul in some gallows in your tree. Like, seriously, it's unnecessary. It makes me feel like you hate kids if that's what you're putting up in excess outside of your home. And that is a really real conversation. I get it. You don't want to bring your kids around your neighborhood because that's what they do. But yeah, that is just the only caveat I can see to, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. But I don't think you need to ban it straight up. You just have to maybe avoid those houses and take a different route.
My question is, if you really are so convinced that the entirety of Halloween is such a demonic, satanic holiday, how are you guys spending Halloween? Because I'm really concerned for you and the choices that you're making. Go trick-or-treating with your kids.
Totally.
Hand out candy to sweet kids all dressed up and who are loving that experience.
Yeah.
Watch Halloween Town or a nostalgic fall movie or Charlie Brown. I mean, there are so many wholesome ways to spend these days and building those memories with your family, but you don't have to give in to the dark just because the dark is out there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Well said. Question of the week. Should we go there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So last week we asked you all if the government shutdown was affecting you, and we got some great responses. I'm loving these. Okay, so Karen Sells DC says, yes, I'm a realtor in DC. People don't move or consider moving. That's true. That's hard. We got a lot of no's. A lot of people saying no, it doesn't affect me. Teresa Gabby said, no, because I have family members that work for Uncle Sam. Oh, I think she means yes because I have family members that work for Uncle Sam. So maybe it is affecting. A funny one from Kleinstein 9. He said, I thought traffic would be better, but it isn't.
I thought so too.
Yeah. Okay. E. Allison 4315 says, yes, my husband and I are essential federal employees and he hasn't been paid. I'm sorry, that's rough.
Sucks, yeah.
And then Alexa Schultz 13 says, no, but my taxes pay their salaries. The least they could do is work. Fair.
Fair enough.
So this week we would love to get y'all's predictions for the election. So send us your thoughts. Weigh in. We'll ask you to weigh in on either Prop 50 out in California or New Jersey, Virginia, or New York mayoral races. We want to know your thoughts. I don't know. I feel like we should have a prize or something. Like if you guess right for who's going to win.
It's like a parlay. Are we allowed to say that? I don't know. Sure. If you get all of them right, if you guess them all correctly, is Prop 50 going to pass? Who's going to be mayor? Who's going to be the governor?
Oh, man.
We'll send you a cup. I don't know.
Can we do that on Instagram?
That's
Fill
cute.
out like a bingo
I love
card.
that.
We'll work on that.
We'll figure something out.
But Jessica, thank you for joining us. Tell us how we can follow your work and keep up with what you're doing.
Yeah. So our firm is Lex Politica. We just started, we're 9 months old and doing some really exciting things. So definitely go find us on Twitter and Instagram. That's probably the best place to do it.
Awesome.
And Isabel, before we go, I also want to give a shout out to your podcast. And
thank you.
It's still, it's weird to say it's new because in some ways it's not, but it's new with Daily Wire.
It's new in a new way, I guess.
So remind us how we can keep up with
across all of my social media and long form video platforms. If you just search Isabel Brown, you can find it. And we've got some really exciting, very, very cool behind the scenes stuff that we're working on right now with some pretty high profile guests, some overseas conversations and episodes, which we're working on. I'll leave it at that. Yeah. But very, very hard at work. I can't believe we're only 7 weeks in because it literally feels like it's been a lifetime and a half since we launched this.
It's a lot of work.
But we're loving it and very, very grateful for your guys' support.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Of course. Awesome. Well, next week we will be back with all the after action on the election. We will know the results and we'll see. Holding our breath. So,
you seem excited.
We'll see y'all next week.